Saudi Arabia. Are you shocked as an African that the uniforms look alike? What happened to us? Where is African Union? Today, we are told that Mozambique needs help. We are told that Total Oil became a conduit. When you read this history, and my friends from Zimbabwe, Venus, Saxon, will bring you the real step inch by inch, how Cape Delgado, I'm not Portuguese, but I have a Portuguese granddaughter, Eradini, from my firstborn daughter, Miriam. She's watching because she said, Dad, I'll translate Grandpa, I'll translate some words. Yes, yes, Africa. Many of you would like me to discuss internal dynamics of democracy. But perhaps I am the only person on planet Africa who thinks that Africa does not need elections. Yes. Do we need elections in Africa? For what? For killing each other? Do you need elections in Africa? Show me one country in Africa, apart from South Africa, which does not fight after elections. Show me. I'm standing here and I'm talking. Show me. Show me one country in Africa that does not contest the results of elections and go to court, waste money going to court. Show me. Show me here. Today, I've come to tell you the truth. That Africa does not need elections. And if you want elections, go to the nearest transformer and put your head on the transformer of electricity. Burn yourself. Because you are going to kill your country. Is this not externally imposed system on Africa? Don't you think elections in Africa are a new concept? Isn't it time for Africa to find out why China gives us money when China 40 years ago, China 40 years ago, China was the poorest country with one rice scheme. In my country, Uganda, Kibimba. Believe President Museveni, you are watching this. You know very well, sir, that in our liberation struggle from 1978, 79, 80, 81, China was the poorest with one rice scheme where we are sharing rice with them and they were exporting the other half. Then we are taking the other half as Ugandans. But because China went back and sat down, changed the modus operandi, Africa, China, today lends money to the United States of America at night and says it doesn't like them during the daytime. My fellow African, when Uhuru Kenyatta goes to borrow money from China, he's condemned. When President Museveni goes to borrow money from China during their time, he's condemned. But America borrows money from China at night, then they condemn each other during their time. Today we have the pandemic that is sweeping across the world. We have not had anywhere on planet Earth the contamination of the origin of this pandemic. We don't know. Today people are being told another variant is coming, another one is coming. Prepare for another one. Another one is coming. Another one is coming. Oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God. How many of these variants are there? Africa. This our war. Are these conflicts ours? China today lends you money because they don't even have elections. Any of you participants and on the panel who are going to speak, when you are called upon to speak, show me one MP of China you have seen in your town across Africa. And then I will give you another 10 shillings for your airtime. Or $10 for your time. $10. If you show me a member of parliament from China carrying a briefcase with two V8s running around the cities of Africa, I will give you $10. China has no MPs, but it's a functioning democracy, according to their democracy. That's why the people want to dismantle them. They're doing very well. Yes, they are doing very well. They have a common bond, a social bond. Africa does not have a social bond. Africa has no social bond. Show me one African country that has a social bond, which gives its people a check every end of the month. The elderly, the non-employed, where are they? Where is this country? Again, I'll give you $10. A check in Africa of the elderly retired takes 2 months to reach the elderly when he has died. This is the Africa where European Union comes with their packages. They package themselves. They say, we are going to solve a conflict in Mozambique. What the hell? This is African Union where the European Union says, we are going to support the people of Somalia. Then they end up themselves amongst the European Union countries. They say, how much gas and oil has Somalia got? They divide themselves. Another European Union country called Norway says we gave Somalis a lot of passports. When Siad Barre's government collapsed and Americans ran away in disarray. Now we need this gas and oil in the Indian Ocean. Now the boundary between Kenya and Somalia must be talked about in ICJ. Is this our position? Haven't we lived together with Somalis without the boundary? Can you tell me single-handedly, wherever you are in this Africa, whether you know which, can you tell which boundary in Indian Ocean when you are passing with a ship? Which boundary? Who made the boundary? Is it a self Who imposed this conflict on us that we are today talking about imaginary oil, which is deep, deep down in the sea? Is this our war? Is this our war? If it is our war, tell me how Somalia and Kenya, if they went to war, tell me how it will benefit the two countries. The European Union will run in with aid. The same European Union is the one that allowed Norway to go across the Indian Ocean and find out the people that there is a boundary and there is oil under the Indian Ocean. We are watching a conflict coming very soon. The United Nations Security Council, under Chapter 7, should sit down and look at stopping any international cases around the Indian Ocean regarding the oil blocks and the maritime borders between Kenya and Somalia. Ladies and gentlemen, those participants, those watching across Africa in the 54 nations, and those watching in the metros of Europe, is Africa a zone for conflict? If the answer to you is yes, who causes this conflict? And again, if you know the answer, who are they? Today, people in the kingdom, how will he be stopped from stealing anybody on planet Earth? There you are. There you are. I know there Mr. Simon Ekpa is here today from the people of Biafra. Simon Ekpa will tell us more about the sinking ship. Is this conflict in the north, in Maiduguri, in the north Maiduguri area? Boko Haram is cutting people's hands, ears, removing eyes, toes. And we in Africa are saying we are Africa, African Union. We are African Union. Heads of state wear suits with very good perfumes, bought from Paris. All of them, including Buhari, arriving in the African Union in a building built by Chinese. What? And then they discuss nothing. Nigeria is sinking. Kidnap. As we talk today, we might not find women in the future in Nigeria. If you have not married in Nigeria, Now, you might not marry in future because all the girls are being kidnapped, taken by Boko Haram, ISIS, and kidnappers. 3/4 of schooling children in Nigeria have been kidnapped. Younger people have been sexually defiled, killed, slaughtered. We might not find a generation of younger people in Nigeria anymore. Across in Cameroon, there started a leader called Paul Biya. In Amazonia, Paul Biya has killed for 4 years, actually for more than 4 years, since 1961. Nigeria, a neighbor of Cameroon, the governments have been conniving. Obasanjo connived and did not take this motion further from the General Assembly. Remember Resolution 1608 of the United Nations Security Council at General Assembly that gave the people of Amazonia the right to self-determination. This resolution was never implemented by Nigeria, the fear of Biafra. Are we together today? Let Africa think. Where are we heading? In Amazonia, people are being slaughtered. Thousands have never seen school because of the French-English crisis. The French-English crisis. If you don't speak French in Cameroon, you are an enemy of Paul Biya. If you don't speak French in Cameroon, you are an enemy of Paul Biya. Is French an African country language? Why should an African head of state force the people of Amazonia to speak French? Why doesn't he force them to speak their natural language? And you slaughter them, you ignore them, you sentence their leaders at 5 a.m. in the morning. I've never heard of a court that sits at 5 a.m. in the morning, and by the time you wake up, the guys had already been sentenced to life. In Cameroon, is this the Africa we want? Across in Central African Republic, I'm giving you this so that it runs across, so that don't touch your country only. Talk about Africa. The conflict in Central African Republic is simply a conflict created by mercantile capitalism. Yes, look at the mercantile capitalism that is taking shape in Central African Republic. Every 2 hours each day, there is an Airbus leaving Charles de Gaulle Airport to go to Bangui. But it doesn't take passengers. It takes goods, equipment, mining equipment, maybe, and it carries back diamonds. A few months ago, United Nations French peacekeeping forces were found with diamonds and boxes of gold hidden in boxes, saying they were returning equipment to France. Does it worry you as an African? Is this the Africa we want? South Sudan, a few days ago, Dr. Yak Machar was purportedly ousted by his own generals. Who funds this conflict in South Sudan? Have you found out? Is it our conflict? The conflict across in Tigray that has sucked in people, many countries, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Egypt, Sudan, Khartoum, and many other Gulf states, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates. All of you tell me you see you Africans, Ugandans, Kenyans are happy. I'm going to Dubai. I'm going to Dubai. You know what? I want to tell you one shocking revelation. I call Dubai River Road of Kenya. Why should I live in London and go to Dubai? Because it has become a river road of Kenya. Why? I hate their policies. Look at the way they fund wars. They fund wars across Africa. The conflict down or up in Tigray is a complex conflict. The European Union is saying, oh, we have to do something. America is saying, we have to do something. Why don't you do something to save the people? What are we waiting for? Who is benefiting from the conflict in Tigray? Who wants to divide Ethiopia into several parts? Who? At least it's not me. And at least it is not Professor PLO Lumumba would not like to see Ethiopia divided. At least it's not President Kisano who will speak later on this conference. At least it's not the participants that I see here who want a divided Ethiopia, a divided Africa. But the conflict, the question that remains on us is, as Miriam is going to come up to read the question to people, to the participants, my co-convener or co-host, I'm the main convener, she's the co-host, and in our organization we give priority also to ladies to chair some sessions. Some of you who came in late, you found when we had already played a video that shows quite a lot. And I will ask the production team to bring that video as I make my remarks. Those were just remarks. I'm coming back with my paper later on. And I want to tell you that each participant, if you are giving a paper, you have 10 minutes. Ekpa, the main speakers have 30 minutes. Those who are on the queue, you have 30 minutes. The keynote speaker, professor, has more time. When you finish and the words are finished, or you are exhausted, your Professor PLO Lumumba, you can sit down. You have about 45 minutes to 1 hour. Because you like speaking. We are here today, but because of the protocols of COVID-19, we could not be all of us. There were several people who wanted to come, but the regulations are very clear. Ekpa, you have 35 minutes. Kuwesa, you have 35 minutes. Section, you have 35 minutes. And others who want to make contribution quick, 2.5 or 3 minutes. If you are making a suggestion, 3 minutes. If you have a short discussion, please make it 2 minutes. Tell us your point, ask your question. We are here to answer you. And our role is to make sure that everybody is happy. We know the problems that are facing Nigeria. We know the problems that are facing the people of Cape Delgado. We know Rwanda and Burundi don't talk. We know Uganda and Rwanda don't talk. We know the conflict in the DRC Congo. Whose conflict is this? Whom does it benefit? Miriam will come up now. I will take this opportunity when the video is shown to take a briefer. I will introduce Professor P.L.O. Lumumba later on, after the video, to come and talk to us. As I told you, in the afternoon, more people are going to be online, including our guest of honor. The problems that kill Africa must be solved by Africans themselves. We must find a solution. And that solution is through talking, not through guns. I am a peacemaker, not a warmonger. I invite the video to play. Thank you. Upon the people of Amazonia today, wherever you are in the diaspora in Amazonia itself, that in a struggle you are bound to have divisions. But divisions should not divert you from the main focus, the main challenge. We have struggled to expose the happenings, the human rights abuses in Amazonia. The army has killed hundreds and hundreds of thousands, burnt the houses of people, internet was cut off, schools were closed, dispensaries, hospitals were burnt down. Amazonians should not be intimidated by Paul Biya. It is not upon the leaders of Amazonia, because I am not from Amazonia. But I've played a pivotal role in making sure that I put out the voices, I put out the call, I call upon the AU, EU, United Nations, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International. Many of them have listened to some of the things that I say here. And they have come at last. America, United States of America, is slowly moving towards giving the Amazonian people the dignity they deserve. I therefore call upon the leaders and the leadership of the Amazonian people to unite for a purpose. The unity of purpose is paramount, as opposed to disunity, which has nothing but only produces ego that we have seen in South Sudan. What has killed South Sudan is not because they don't have the money, the minerals, the resources, is ego between Riek Machar and Salva Kiir. We would not like to see that ego come to the people of Amazonia, the leadership of Amazonia. I call upon Samuel Sako, Akanga, Miranda, and Ekpa to unite and talk with one voice on international scene that will bring about the peace, the tranquility that you yearn for since 1961, when the resolution 608 was abandoned by the United Nations General Assembly and Amazonia was annexed by the Cameroon government by then. I call upon you, my brothers, to pick up the unity call and free your people without this interpretation. Thank you. First, those listening to this tape for this video, I want to bring to your attention that the politics of proxy wars in Africa is becoming real and it has become a reality. I want to bring to the attention of the African states that time and time again we have fallen victims of proxy wars. We fight wars that are not ours. We fall in conflicts that are not supposed to be, don't help Africa, and they don't help our countries at all. The proxy war that is in East and Central and the Horn of Africa has been ignited, supported, equipped by France. It has been very real that the French government, quietly through its company called Total Oil, has been searching for resources around the triangle of East and Central Africa and the Great Lakes region and the Horn of Africa. Represent was one of them, which would have been a landmark project for the people of France. Indeed, they withdrew from it. The search for oil and resources through Total Oil has brought us the dangers of a proxy war in the region. It is therefore very prudent for people of the region to understand the dynamics that we are going through. For example, in Rwanda and Burundi conflict, there is a proxy war. We are fighting a proxy country has brought us to a war between the two countries, between Uganda and Rwanda and Burundi. There is a proxy war in Congo. Who is sponsoring the resurgence of rebels that are fighting President Tshisekedi because he was not supported by countries that we know very well. This type of strategy has happened in North Africa, where Libya has been reduced to rebels, where each faction, even the government supported by United Nations, is being bombarded by a rebel called Khalifa Haftar, who is funded by countries that the question of Somalia and the Kenyan maritime presents a challenge, a testy case for Africa and East Africa to stand firm and denounce the actions of countries that bring proxy wars and proxy politics in our region. It is therefore my humble submission that for this conflict, for this to end, we must do enough public advocacy around the area to endeavor and explain to the international why this problem is going to create an imbalance in the peace in the region, and the regional peace will be affected. It is therefore my humble submission that as a Ugandan whose troops, brothers and sisters, mothers and fathers of other many millions Ugandans who are in Somalia, condemn any action by the smart government to try to resolve issues that should have been resolved amicably as Africans within the African conflict. I submit, therefore, that some of us will come in my own faith to do now, from now onwards, to expose, to show the challenges of these countries that make us fight. Thank you very much. ladies and gentlemen, participants across the world, wherever you are in Europe, we now officially start. We have already had remarks from myself, Dr. David Matanga, the chairman of Pan-African Forum, chairman of Punchline Africa TV, the Ion Africa Radio, Punchline Africa, Africa World Media, and many organizations that come under my umbrella in the fight to make Africa better. I want to make it clear that this is a security-related meeting where we discuss the security of Africa, where Africa's security will come under scrutiny. It would be very prudent for security intelligence networks across Africa to listen, to take notes, to ask questions. Where have we gone wrong? Why is there no peace after every election? Why should countries in Africa preoccupy themselves with politics? Politics everywhere in Africa. If people are up in Tunisia, you can see on the streets politics. During a pandemic, people are still talking of elections across Africa, not only Kenya, not only Uganda, not only Tunisia. You see in South Sudan, you see in Ethiopia, you have seen in Somalia an election that is a mirage. This morning, the keynote speakers for the morning session will be Professor P.L.O. Lumumba, a constitutional lawyer, a speaker, a motivational speaker, a man who has been with me in and out in difficulties. We have been together struggling to put a word for Africa. There are challenges when people say, why don't you put your house in order before you come to tell us? But for us, our houses are not in Kenya or in Uganda. Our houses are in Africa. We cherish the dream. We love the dream of Nkrumah, Sekuture, Gabriel Nasser, Haile Selassie, Milton Obote, Julius Nyerere, Jomo Kenyatta, Patrice Lumumba, Benabera. Look at those guys who stood up. Baba Tafawa Balewa, so I cannot forget that guy, that gentleman from Hamid Secretary. Look, these gallant sons of Africa who stood up and said, hey, 50 years to come, you remember us. 60 years to come, remember our words. Nkrumah told you, whatever Nkrumah is today, must be saying, I told you. And the time is going to come when you also will say, we told you. Those who will come on the generation when I and the professor, because we don't know when we are going. None of us knows the date. And there are some prophets here who know the dates. Me, I don't know. I'm guided by God's will. Professor Pierre Lumumba has been at the forefront of talking about Africa. Most of you know his speeches. Some have taken his speeches, utilizing them Some have taken them and turned them into lethal weapons against their own states. Honestly, that's the Africa we have. I don't know how many Africans know that the United States borrows money at night from China, then tells us during the daytime, if we find you going to China, we shall stamp your passport. No entry. Hey. So PLO Lumumba is a man who did not grow where jiggers come from. But for me, my country has had several jiggers, but not in my tribe. It is only one tribe in Uganda which has jiggers commonly, that is Busoga. I am from a mountainous place in Mount Elgon, where Chemutai, who got the golden medal, comes from. Hallelujah, Chemutai, hallelujah. Today, we've taken a gold medal. The lady can run. She's from the place where I come from. Tall. We are all tall. 6 feet. They are going to grow. If she's not growing, she's growing higher. So thank you. I come from that country called the Pearl of Africa. Today we are not here to discuss our countries. We are here to discuss Africa. So I want to take this opportunity to introduce Professor PLO Lumumba and to allow Miriam just to call him, because as Miriam comes in, let him not come now. Miriam will call him, because Miriam is also a descendant of Professor PLO Lumumba. Another speaker will be Simon Ekpa. Simon Ekpa is from Biafra. He's in amalgamated Nigeria, a forced Nigeria. They call it a zoo. Some people say it is a zoo, but as a state from AU records and the UN records, Simon Ekpa will speak as a Biafran. Will speak this morning and I will speak again in the afternoon. Discuss several other aspects. He will make light known to the people of what is going on in his country. Another speaker will be Dr. Nyachama. Dr. Nyachama is a man who understands human beings. He will speak from that point of humanity. What can we do for Africa? Another speaker will be Juliet Mahapira from London. Juliet will speak from the women point of view in the diaspora. She's a senior member of the Liberal Democratic Party. She's a Kenyan from Kitale, but she has become very powerful in London to the extent of reaching the House of Commons, trying to run for parliamentary seat on the ticket of Liberal Democrats. And I told her to run on the Labour Party like me, because I'm a member of the Labour Party. In fact, if it had not been Zimbabwe, Professor, I had not told you this, I would have been the first direct African to enter House of Commons. Tony Blair and Robin Cook had given me a constituency where Labour was the majority. To run, that is Croydon Central, I was going to be one powerful figure in the House of Commons from direct the mountains of Uganda. But because of standing for Africa and speaking for Mugabe, I turned on the Labour Party and denounced it for putting sanctions on Zimbabwe. We fell out with Tony Blair and with Claire Short and Peter Haynes. I lost. But up to now, I am a member of the constituency, a delegate of the constituency to the General Assembly, to the Delegates Conference of the Labour Party. And I've told this lady, Juliet Mahapira from Kenya, that the only party that you can sell through to House of Commons is either Conservative or Labour. As you see, the Home Secretary for Britain is Uganda. Yes, the lady is from Uganda. You see, things work very well. I would have been maybe in that first Labour minister, I would have been a minister for Africa to whip PLO. I don't know. So, thank you very much. Mahapira will come from London. And the other speakers, those who want to speak, there is a lady from there is a lady from Khartoum who will speak. I'm going to give you the names. Then there is a good lady from Lusaka, Madame Masowe, what? Madame Masowe from Zambia. She will speak this morning. And then there are other speakers whom you see on the rest of you. Miriam will be calling your names or will update the register as it is. Now I call upon Miriam to take over the hosting, and I invite Professor PLO Lumumba to the podium. Thank you.
Right, Doctor, thank you so much. You're coming to us from the White Sands there in Mombasa. My name is Miriam Good, for those who are watching, and I'm at the general headquarters here in Nairobi, Kenya. Indeed, a very warm welcome to you. And as you already know from the title that you have on your screen, this morning our topic of discussion on the Pan-African Conference is EU deployment in Africa, conflict zones for political stability or their own economic stability. And now it is a pleasure to welcome our next speaker, Professor PLO Lumumba. Professor, a warm welcome to you.
First, let me start by thanking the Pan-African Forum Limited and its founder, Dr. David Matsanga, for putting together this conversation. This is a very important conversation, particularly at this time in the life of the continent of Africa. We are having this conversation at a time when there are many conflicts in the continent of Africa in the manner in which Dr. Matsanga has outlined. And these conflicts have different DNAs, if you may. One of the most important, and I use the word important very deliberately, conflicts currently going on is in Ethiopia, and is a conflict that threatens to break up the Federal Republic of Ethiopia, which is the headquarters of the Organization of African Unity, now turned into the African Union. Only yesterday, reports tell us that the Tigray army has occupied the important town of Lalibela. And what is worrying is that we have not heard the voice of the chair of the African Union, nor have we heard the voice of the President of the Democratic Republic of Congo, President Felix Tshisekedi, who is the current chair. We have not heard the leaders of IGAD speak. We have not heard the leaders of the East African community speak. We have not heard the leaders of ECOWAS speak. We have not heard the leaders of SADC speak. We have not heard the leaders of the Central African countries speak. We have not heard the leaders of Maghreb speak. We have heard muted and apologetic voices from the United Nations. And yet we know that men, women, and children are suffering with bodies floating in various water bodies. And that is just one conflict. We know that there is instability in Somalia, and that Somalia has gone through a very long period of instability, which has created an environment that is hostile to the realization of sustainable peace. We know that in the recent past, there has and continues to be insurgency in Mozambique. Commentators suggest that it is a religious war, but the anatomy of that war has not been understood properly. But whatever it is, it cannot be denied that it threatens the peace, not only of Mozambique, but of southern Tanzania. We have seen the continued instability on the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo, which country has never known peace and quiet since the assassination of Patrice Emery Lumumba in 1961. We know that Central African Republic has also had problems, and that there is no peace and quiet there. We also know that South Sudan is struggling to get out of conflict, and as had been stated this morning and yesterday in the media, no sooner had we imagined that with the swearing in of 588 members of parliament in Juba would herald a new peaceful dispensation, then we are told that another faction of Riek Machar's political party have disowned him, and almost immediately his own faction have disowned the other faction, which means that there is a breeding ground for conflict. In Sudan, we know of the conflict in the Nuba Mountain, in the Blue Nile, and in Darfur. We also know that Libya continues to be in difficulty, and we cannot forget the recent assassination of President Abiy Itno and the continued instability in Chad. In Burkina Faso, we know that there is conflict as we speak, and the same may be said of Mali, of Mauritania, and of course, the Amazonian problem, which continues to fester. And we cannot forget that even in Senegal, which we may think is peaceful, the people in the Casamance region have their own problems with the Dakar administration. Those are conflicts which are of high tension nature. But we also know that in the countries which appear to have peace, every election cycle threatens those very nations. In Kenya, we know that in the year 2007, the country nearly degenerated into civil war when the political class mobilized the population and weaponized their constituencies until through international intervention, the country was saved from falling into the abyss of civil war. The same was repeated in Kenya in the year 2017, and as the country approaches the elections in 2022, the drums of war are already beating. In Zambia, we are already aware that the president has asked the armed forces to be deployed into the streets as they prepare for their elections on the 12th day of August. And we know that every election cycle in different countries, only yesterday, the 5th day of August 2021, we saw young men and women in a most disciplined way demonstrating in the streets of Accra, Ghana, and demanding that they must have jobs. Africa is in a crisis. And that crisis is the one that begs the question which is on the table, and which I beg to rephrase. Are the conflicts in Africa internally generated or externally manufactured and fueled internally? Is it the case that the erstwhile colonial powers now operating under the aegis of the European Union is the manufacturers of those conflicts? Is it possible that even those that have left the European Union, such as the United Kingdom, are part of that conflict? In a nutshell, the question that is on the table is, why is it that so many years after the bulk of African countries regained their independence, the fragility of the African nation threatens the post-colonial state? In order to understand that question, I think it is important that we address ourselves, albeit briefly, to the historical origin of the modern African state. It is something that has been stated times without number, but in order to contextualize our conversation, it is important to repeat it again. The modern African state, and I'm using the word modern very guardedly, is a product of the Berlin Conference, which was held in Berlin, Germany, between the months of November 1884 and the month of February 1885. The very reason why that meeting was held is because the European powers divided the African continent into their spheres of influence for purposes of exploitation. The product of that particular engagement is that each of the European powers had their own spheres of influence, with France taking their own share, the Germans their own share, the Italians their own share, the British their own share, the Portuguese their own share, the Belgians their own share, and of course, we know that in certain parts of the continent, even the Arabs were present in countries such as Zanzibar, and the net effect of all these was that Africa was fragmented and African territories were then arbitrarily parceled out into what we now call the African countries. Chinua Achebe captures the end product of the Berlin Conference in his book, The Trouble with Nigeria, written in 1983, when he says that most African countries are mere geographical expressions and that they are created deliberately and designed to collapse. It is in this regard that you can understand that in a country such as Kenya or Uganda or Tanzania, you find different African nations distributed amongst these countries, as is the case in Nigeria, as is the case in most African countries, and that therefore, when the colonial enterprise was brought to an end, the post-colonial state was not meant to succeed. They were designed to fail. And indeed, in the cases of countries such as France, they were not even pretentious about it, so that they entered into a pact for the continuation of colonization, which saw former French colonies to continue to be treated as being under the tutelage of France and being directed from Paris. Indeed, that meant, among other things, that their economies were controlled from the French government, complete with a currency, the CFA franc, which is printed, distributed, and whose value is determined by the Paris government. That also remains true of the former Portuguese colonies, which were wrestled out of the combined Marcelo Caetano and Antonio de Spinola regimes in the 1970s and 1980s, when through sustained struggle, independence was captured from them by the Mozambicans, the Angolans, the Cabo Verdeans, and the Guinea-Bissauans. And of course, we know that the same was true of the former British colonies, and ultimately in Southern Africa, if they were arrested from the apartheid regime, which was a product of the apartheid philosophy articulated in 1948 by the Nationalist Party of Hendrik Verwoerd. Africa, therefore, is a continent that must be understood as the home of diversity. Somebody described that form of diversity, I think it is Simon from Nigeria, specifically in the Biafra region, who says that in Africa there is a dangerous form of diversity which militates against our unity unless it is understood and used to mediate African conflicts. That is the continent in which we find ourselves. And Africa has always been a victim, as all of us know, of diabolical conspiracies and diabolical machinations of the former colonial powers. Indeed, one can say that no sooner had African countries started regaining their independence than the former colonial powers started plotting the destruction and or destabilization of African countries. It is instructive that as early as 1961 in countries such as what we now describe as the Democratic Republic of Congo, individuals who were seen to be progressive, such as Patrice Emery Lumumba, were assassinated. The same fate was to meet Sylvanus Olympio in Togo. And no sooner had that happened, you will remember that other great African leaders were also assassinated. But let us retrace a little to understand how the diabolical machinations started very early on in the history of Africa. Prior or immediately after the independence of Ghana, which was the leading country in that regard, and I'm excluding Liberia, which was created in a unique manner in 1847, and excluding Ethiopia and excluding Egypt to a certain extent, and Sudan. When Kwame Nkrumah led the Ghanaians to regain their political independence, one could see the hidden hands of foreign powers at that time. I remember, courtesy of history, that after Ghana regained our independence, in a speech that was delivered on the day of independence, the subject for Kwame Nkrumah was as eloquent as he was passionate in reminding Ghanaians that the independence of Ghana meant nothing unless all other African countries regained their independence. And it is on that basis that he told them that the imperialists will always have different ways of ensuring that they stay in the continent of Africa. He said that imperialists do not change their character. They may wear different masks. They may come as investors. They may come as donors, but their agenda and their scheme remains one and the same. to subjugate and to manipulate the African continent. It is on that basis and guided by that principle that in 1958, Kwame Nkrumah convened a meeting of African leaders, urging them that there was a need to create a front that was going to ensure that post-colonization, the neo-colonial project was not allowed to take root in Africa. As 2 years later, Kwame Nkrumah with King Hassan of Morocco convened yet another meeting in Casablanca in Morocco, and that group of individuals who believed in the total and genuine independence of the continent of Africa, not flag independence, were christened the Casablanca group. At the same time, the erstwhile colonizer led by the French under the leadership of their retired Army General Charles de Gaulle had recruited Cote d'Ivoire's Félix Houphouët-Boigny and Tubman of Liberia, and indeed they had a meeting initially in Monrovia in Liberia and subsequently in Antananarivo in what is now known as Madagascar, then known as Malagasy, and that created what was then described as the Monrovia Group. So that when Haile Selassie convened a meeting in the month of May between the 23rd and 25th days of May in 1963 in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, there were two factions which were on the table at that time. One can say that there was the Casablanca group, which was clear in its mind that Africa needed to enjoy total liberation and to ensure that the neo-colonial project was not allowed to thrive, and the Monrovia group, which was led and whose agenda was articulated by Félix Houphouët-Boigny, who took the view that Africa needed to grow away, and I'm using the word grow very deliberately, from colonialism in a gradualist way. It can be said that despite the urging, despite the spirited cajolement of Kwame Nkrumah, it is the Monrovia group that won the day in Addis Ababa in 1963, and instead of a United States of Africa, we ended up with the Organization of African Unity, which was a watered-down version of the United States of Africa that Kwame Nkrumah had demanded as a way of immunizing the continent against the vagaries of the neo-colonial project. And I dare say that today we are paying for the choice of those lukewarm leaders not to listen to Kwame Nkrumah. Because when they did so, in a very surreptitious and in a very diabolical way, the erstwhile colonizers continued to be the puppeteers, and the newly colonized countries became puppets and marionettes, which were controlled. If they were not controlled from Brussels, as in the case of Congo, they were controlled from Paris, or they were controlled from London, or they were controlled from Madrid, and of course, subsequently, some of them were to be controlled from Moscow and from Washington during the Cold War. The net effect, therefore, is that Africa has always been a continent that is under the attack and assault of foreign powers. Even as Africa was continuing to labor under the choreographed machinations of the Western powers, which were designed to ensure that African resources were being taken away, other powers were also coming into the continent of Africa. It is in this context that we must understand the coming into force of the Soviet Union after the World War II and the emergence of the Soviet Union as one of the world powers and the emergence of the United States of America as the other world hegemon. There was now a contestation of an ideological nature, and Africa became a theater of this conflict. Leaders either affiliated themselves to the Moscow spirit of communism or affiliated themselves to the Washington philosophy of capitalism. Even if those leaders had been, or those countries had been colonized by France or the United Kingdom, the greater Q now came from Washington, which was leader of the conceptual West, in the same way that Moscow was leader of the conceptual East. What we then saw were conflicts and the propping up of dictators. How many of you listening to me and present in this forum will not remember that leaders such as Joseph Desire Mobutu, later to rename himself Mobutu Sese Seko, remained in power because he was a puppet of the Washington regime? How many of you will forget that leaders such as Jean Bedel Bokassa in Central African Republic remained in power because they were puppets? How many of you will remember that leaders such as Mashias Nguema Biyogo remained in power because they were puppets? And how many of you will forget that even leaders such as Dauda Kairaba Jawara in Gambia remained because they were puppets of the West, including with titles of adulation such as Sir Dauda Kairaba Jawara? And how many of you will forget that leaders such as Siad Barre and Mengistu Haile Mariam remained in power because they were being supported by the Moscow government? And we know that after the collapse of the Soviet Union, then the world changed in what was described by political commentators and political scientists as a unipolar world. And the systems that were under the tutelage of the communist powers now came under the sphere or the domination of the United States of America and resurgent European Union powers, who are now telling African countries that the only way in which we could lend you money, because at that time economies had also been destroyed and the only available sources of lending were Western institutions, the Bretton Woods institution to be exact, the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. What we were then told, and African countries and African politicians were told, in order to be accepted into the fold of the politically civilized, you had to embrace something that was described as democracy. And this democracy had to be defined by the conceptual West. And it meant, among other things, that you had to embrace multi-party politics. It meant that you had to hold frequent elections periodic. It meant that you had to have heads of state, presidents, or prime ministers whose terms were limited. It meant that you had to have non-governmental organizations, most of which were funded from European powers and whose agenda was to articulate Western ideas of human rights and Western agendas in other spheres. Many African countries found themselves coming into that fold, so that many of the intellectuals in Africa, whether they like it or not, became proposal writing machines, writing proposals to NGOs in Germany, NGOs in the United States of America, NGOs in Sweden, NGOs in different parts of the world. And despite their protestation to the contrary, they merely were puppets. They merely were recipients of little pittances being paid to them. And he who pays the piper, the old saying goes, calls the tune. So you had an African intelligentsia who, to use that neo-Marxist term, and I'm saying this is neo-Marxist, I'm not myself a Marxist, but they were and could be described as the comprador bourgeois. And these comprador bourgeois continue to operate in Africa under different guises. You find them in NGOs, you find them in governments, and I dare say that they are the fifth columnists via which these Western organizations and Western powers continue to operate in the continent of Africa. And of course, as Marx once said, the safety of this comprador bourgeois demands that the masses of the people be kept in the most profound ignorance. And what do, these individuals? In order to sustain their agenda, they have now perfected the art of mobilizing their citizens who are ordinarily people from their ethnic groups. The mobilization of ethnic groups and the creation of political parties which do not have the character of political parties, they have no ideological anchors, is what now creates problems in Africa amongst many other things. And I dare say in many African countries, there are no political parties as are understood in different parts of the world. The political parties we have are actually ethnic enclaves led by, depending on which country one is talking about, low voltage ethnic warlords whose only desire is to seek political office for nothing else other than material aggrandizement. In the minds of these men and women, in certain cases, the only agenda that they have is that they must seek and seize the instruments of the state and use them for personal benefit. And that is why we talk about the concept of the prebendal state, where the agenda of those who get into political power is to share state revenue and is only the crumbs that are available for the general population. When you are operating in an environment such as that, then you must know that conflict is always knocking at your door if it is not in fact sitting in your very sitting room. And I dare say that that is where Africa now finds herself. In the recent past, of course, we have seen the emergence of China. China has come into the African scene like a juggernaut. It has come in the nature of a Trojan horse. It comes with goodies in the forms of railways, in the forms of stadia, in the form of roads, in the form of development of ports and other things which are visible and which can then be waved to the gullible electorate as constituting development. And in that way, China has entered the hearts and minds of very many African leaders. And today, there are very few African countries which are not under the beck and call of China. Has it ever been lost on you? Have you ever not wondered why it is that Africa, with our 54, 55 countries, depending on whether Morocco agrees that Sahrawi is a country or not, why it is that it's only African countries that periodically once a year are summoned to Beijing and all of them run to Beijing to be addressed by one leader of China? Have you ever wondered why it is only Africa whose leaders are summoned to Tokyo to be addressed by the Prime Minister of Japan? Have you ever wondered why African leaders are the only ones who are summoned to Washington to be addressed by the leader of the United States? Have you ever wondered why African leaders are the only ones that are summoned to Moscow to be addressed by the president of Russia? Have you ever wondered why Africans are the only leaders who are summoned to Germany to be addressed by the Chancellor of Germany? Have you ever wondered why African leaders are the only ones who are summoned to New Delhi to be addressed by the Prime Minister of India? Have you ever wondered why Africans are the only ones who are summoned to the Arab world to be addressed by the King of Qatar? It is because Africa is the theater. Africa is the home of resources. And African leaders are mere marionettes and puppets who are manipulated to the detriment of the people. That is not to say that there are no exceptions in Africa. There are few African leaders who have tried to speak out. And in this regard, I never forget the late John Joseph Pombe Magufuli. I never forget Paul Kagame. I never forget occasionally Hage Geingob. And occasionally in his younger days, of course, I never forget Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. And in his younger and better days, Robert Mugabe. And of course, there were others in the period before this period, which I'm talking about now. But the truth is that the Africa that I'm talking about is an Africa that is in a crisis of monumental proportions, which then legitimizes for me to ask the question again, what is the source of African conflicts? Let us remember that conflict is a multi-billion-dollar industry. If you look at the economies of countries that look innocent, such as Sweden, and look at what brings money to their economies is weapons. If you look at the economies of most countries in Europe and America, and what injects money to the economy is weaponry, small arms, and other things. And in order for these industries to remain alive, conflicts must be manufactured. Africans must be made to fight, to engage in fratricidal wars. And we can see these fratricidal wars in Ethiopia now. We see fratricidal wars in Sudan. We see fratricidal wars in Southern Sudan. We see fratricidal wars in the Democratic Republic of Congo, fratricidal wars in Mozambique, fratricidal wars in Cameroon and in Amazonia, fratricidal wars in Mali, in Nigeria, in Burkina Faso, in Mauritania, in Libya, and in many parts of Africa. And when these wars are being prosecuted, money is being made in the billions. And you must also know that poverty is also a multi-billion-dollar industry. And as long as you ensure that Africans are wallowing in the muck and mire of poverty, you can engage in humanitarian action, and in that way you continue to sustain Western organizations. War and poverty are multi-million-dollar industries. But does it mean that we ourselves are free of guilt? No, we are co-authors of our own misfortune. The misfortune of Africa is that our men and women who have had the honor and privilege of presiding over our affairs post-independence, except for a very few of them, have been men and women who have no agenda for the continent. They are men and women who want to occupy political office for personal aggrandizement, as I said. They are men and women whose only desire is to lord it over their people. They are men and women who are possessed by the spirit of egotism and megalomania. They are men and women who have no vision for their country. They are men and women who are myopic. They are men and women who do not want to address the critical problems of food, the critical problems of health. They are men and women who, as we have seen during this pandemic, cannot lead their countries to embrace science. They are men and women who, instead of embracing technology, are engaging in embracing theology, not knowing that the problems of technology cannot be solved by the problem by theology. We cannot pray into action that which we can acquire through science. So Africa can only liberate herself when she realizes genuinely that her future not only demands but requires that she must stop and pause and ask herself what is our trajectory. Africa must get into a clear understanding that her present structures are not going to solve our problems. You cannot pour new wine in old wineskins. Organizations which are in a suspended state of animation, such as the African Union, must be revamped and reorganized if Africa is to know and to realize our potential. I know that in the recent past we have come up with projections and schemes such as Africa Agenda 2063, and there is nothing wrong with the promises of Africa Agenda 2063. I know that we have the African Continental Free Trade Area, and there is nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with the Maputo Protocol. There is nothing wrong with the Malabo Protocol. There is nothing wrong with the Kigali Protocol. There is nothing wrong with all those initiatives. But what I know is that mere pronouncements in and of themselves without accompanying and deliberate action, which is informed by the desire to change the continent in a dramatic way, is not going to help us solve our problems. So we can blame European Union all we want. We can blame China all we want. We can blame the United Kingdom all we want. We can blame the United States all we want. But we must also remember that we have contributed to our own misfortune. Is it not the case that when we were fighting for independence through our fathers, we gave ourselves a promise that we needed independence in order to demonstrate to the world that we had the intellectual wherewithal to run our affairs? Did we not tell ourselves that our independence was more than our national anthems, more than our flags, more than our mottos, and that we would not allow our imposed boundaries to stand in the way of our creative unity? Did we not tell ourselves that? Did we not tell ourselves that we were going to ensure that our people would have good health facilities? Did not tell ourselves that we were going to fight ignorance through education, through science and innovation? Did we not tell ourselves that we were going to feed ourselves by having agriculture that is sound and is not rain dependent? Did we not tell ourselves that we were going to use our resources? Did we not tell ourselves that Africa was going to be liberated? We told ourselves those things, but because, as Chinua Achebe rightly said in 1983, the problem of Africa is simply and squarely a problem of leadership, and I dare say, even that of followership, because we who are the voters, we who are in the majority, we have allowed ourselves to create monsters unto ourselves. We have allowed those who stand in positions of leadership to think that they are demigods. And when you have treated people as demigods for too long, they now suffer from the martyr complex. They now suffer from the Messiah complex. And they think that we are mere marionettes and puppets to be manipulated. And they consume all the things that we ought to consume. Africa will only liberate herself from the day that we realize that the problems of Africa can only be solved by ourselves. But we must wake up and be prepared to roll our sleeves. And when we do that, and do that in a sustainable and undisciplined manner, Africa will stop blaming others and begin to use our monumental resources for the benefit of the continent. It can be done, it must be done, and it is only you who can do it. As Julius Kambarage Nyerere famously said, it can be done, play your part. And as the Osagie for Kwame Nkrumah famously said, we cannot solve these problems by looking east or west, we must look forward. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you so much, Professor Pierre Lumumba. I think one of the key messages that I've gotten from that speech is that as much as we want to blame the East or the West, but Africans, we become the co-authors of our own misfortunes. So I think even some of the solutions must start with us. Thank you so much, Professor Pierre Lumumba, for that, and posing very important questions that we need to, interrogate as Africans if at all we need to move forward as a continent. All right. So if I bring in Simon Ekpa, I'd like to bring in Saxon from Zimbabwe. Saxon, it's your time now.
Good morning. Good morning, panelists. Good morning, viewers. I'm gonna mostly focus on why European nations intervene militarily in Africa. One of the main reasons that nations in Europe intervene actors do decide to intervene, it is primarily for motives of security, prestige, economic interest, rather than for humanitarian reasons. The weight of the past relations with Africa can also be a driver for European military intervention, but the impact of that past is changing. France's enduring ability to project military power on the African continent and influence political events there yet has been central to its self-perception as a major power. However, since the end of the Cold War, France's paternalistic interference has been increasingly questioned, not at least by Africans, but by other nations as well. This has produced a gradual and somewhat reluctant turn to multilateralism on the part of the French leaders, drawing on in-depth case studies of recent French intervening policy. France's efforts to reassure critics is by securing multilateral endorsements, share burdens and liabilities through collective implementation, and reaffirm its status as a major power by spreading complex missions through its intelligence systems, which are the messages humanitarian help, not direct foreign help. The threat of terrorism is prioritized over issues of material wealth, outright, and the environment, which are equally potent threats to human society in the context of France. Such a threat is intersubjective and can be used to justify not only military action but also determine development strategies, climate change action, democratic change, and even territories of African states, so long the actors external to Africa continue to draw the narrative. First, neoliberal economic policies that impose the austerity on African governments increase the likelihood of armed conflict, which in turn led to selective intervention by foreign regimes. You understand, during the early 1990s, IMF, the Bretton Woods Institute, they sold their economic social adjustment programs to many nations. And these social adjustment programs led to destruction of social safety nets, which had been put in place by newly independent states, and thereby this led to a lot of riots, demonstration. For instance, I can give an example in Zimbabwe in 1999, where the West riots, which were caused by a rise in staple food, our maize meal, because the IMF had said we should remove subsidies, but we were a young economy which was donor dependent. So you see how these neoliberal economic policies impacted on African governments, thereby creating conflict which warranted them to intervene. Like in 1991 with the 1991 Somali War, where Muhammad said Bara did to wage a protracted war with the US Marines, which this war later became the burden for Africa after the Americans fled the butchering by the Somali terror army. Secondly, US military presence expanded after the 9/11 terror attack, and this impacted African setup. I think we've started noticing the terror groups, the Al Qaeda and Mahreb, we now with ISIS. This is the result of a foreign creation where these guys are fighting their own wars. Like the issue of terror started in 1939 when the United States funded the Mujahideen for when they fight in the Soviet Union. And later they broke ranks with Al Qaeda, Bin Laden, who later started setting bases in Africa, and Africans paid dearly for this. Americans started bombing the terror targets, and in turn, these terrorists started killing African people. And the Americans later set up bases here, and these bases were not only for humanitarian purpose, but were meant to protect their own interests. The same applies to nations like United Kingdom. They also came in under the guise of fighting terror. And if you've noticed, the problem of terrorism is increased in Africa because of their presence. Because they've got the issue of Arab-Israeli conflict, which the Americans and the Europeans are supporting the Israelis. And these terrorists only follow them to destabilize them and to fight back, like targeting their interests. In the same vein, the Africans are caught in the web. The decline of humanitarian justification for military intervention might signal broader trends in which the project of human rights, the right to protect, which was used in the attack of Libya in 2011, also in Mali in 2013. Libyan intervention under the pretext of the right to protect was a cover-up, as the real reason was to start the vision of the United States of Africa, which was championed by the late Colonel Muammar Gaddafi. The vision of late Colonel Gaddafi was going to affect the economic interests of the Europeans. So the only way they had to do was to remove him. And they used some of African nations, like South Africa, who voted for the resolution which authorized military attack on Libya. And at the end of the day, you've seen these military conflicts, they don't benefit Africa at all. Intervention by the Europeans. Right now, if you look at Libya, life is worse off. The Europeans have looted oil. If you were to check the deposits of oil reserves, so whenever the Europeans intervene, they intervene for their own economic interest or prestige. Aside a few examples of conflicts where the Europeans paid the debt, i.e., because their interests were not affected, or even they participated to support those conflicts. The conflict resolution community seems to pursue conflict resolution efforts in Africa from a variety of purposes and interests, and with policies that are often replete with ambiguities and contradictions. This situation may be the reason why many African conflicts may be silenced but remain largely unresolved, because the underlying factors of those conflicts do not have been addressed. It will be more cosmetic solutions that would have been suggested. The solution may be okay. Because African conflict involves activities of seasoned peacemakers using the best of personal skills and recently developed knowledge about ways of managing and resolving conflict. International efforts at conflict management has not been particularly effective or efficient in overcoming disasters that have brought them into the continent. The critical question then is how we understand the problem of conflict resolution in Africa. When the actors mainly external to Africa propagate the ideas of peace and conflict resolution, corresponding mainly to their own interests and views of African world. The examples of military and economic texts concluded by French-speaking leaders with France's independence are a case in point. In many cases, this fact has not been rescinded half a century after independence, and that is why former French colonies either still have the French military stationed in their countries or continue to call for France for military intervention, as in the case of the Central African Republic and Mali. In Africa, the concept of state or nation is based on Africa's colonial past. Article 4 of the Constitutive Act of the African Union places emphasis on the respect for state boundaries inherited at independence. African states have also remained spheres of influence of former colonial powers, and no power in the world is interested in changing that situation. The European concept of state has had a strong influence on African countries, and it was this concept of state that led to drawing up of arbitrary borders throughout Africa. Such Eurocentric thinking, reinforced by technological and scientific achievement, is still very present in Africa. Colonial rule was the antithesis of democracy because it was premised on the usurpation of fundamental rights to self-determination and of the fundamental human rights of citizens and people. Okoye in 1997 underscored that the fact that whatever legitimate colonialism possessed was derived not from any set of agreed rules or consensus, but from the monopoly of the means of coercion and violence, and by its divide and rule strategies aimed at intensifying the cleavages, which were the cleavages of class, tribal, and religious, which were inherent in the social structure and at prolonging its rule. Colonial rule never raised the issue of good governance. A review of intervention efforts in African conflict in the last 2 or 3 decades of the 20th century brings out 2 main trends in regard to the main actors or agents and the intervention approaches involved. The first trend shows that the main actors intervening in African conflict were almost entirely from outside of Africa. These were individuals, countries or group of countries, institutions or organizations. Until 1993, Africa was almost totally dependent on outside entities for conflict management, Some of these outside entities or actors included former colonial masters, international organizations, and foreign powers like United Nations, European Community, and the United States of America, as well as regional efforts like Economic Community for West African States, ECOWAS, in West Africa, and Intergovernmental Authority on Drought and Desertification, IGAD, in East Africa, and a number of non-governmental actors such as former President Jimmy Carter and Julius Nyerere. The second strong idea that emerged from intervention is the increasing emphasis on conflict management rather than resolution as the intervention approach in Africa. China seems to be also waging expanding its influence in Africa because of its policy. China has the advantage of never having enslaved or colonized the continent. China has also not made the false promises quoted with the neoliberalism, whilst the West and the IMF and the World Bank put conditions that only aid in the uplifting of Africa. China has so far been willing to provide unconditional aid in invest in infrastructure. At the same time, however, it really takes full advantage of the opening up of markets and that neoliberal economic policy over the last 25 years have offered and incumbent. So far, unlike the United States, China has not sought to establish military bases in Africa to protect its economic interests, which the US has sought to establish through the setting up of AFRICOM. International humanitarian and peacekeeping efforts have often been marred by conflicting interests that have sometimes led the people they intend to assist. The war and terror, like it's called war pre-anti-defense, has increased American and European military presence on the continent, generated a new external support for repressive governments, and contributed to an escalation of violence in many regions. Rather than promoting security, outside intervention is often intensified strife and undermined prospects of peace and demonstrating once again how failure claims of the past is obfuscate the pitfalls of the future. European military interventions are either meant to stabilize African nations or meant to protect their economic interests. When Mozambique waged a brutal civil war, which ended with the signing of the Roma Accord in 1992, and the African initiated peace deal around 2013, we didn't see any European nations intervening in the crisis, which killed many millions, because this crisis was their own creation. For your own information, the Renamo outfit was the creation of the Rhodesian Central Intelligence Organization. It was led by Ken Flower. And when Zimbabwe got its independence, the Central Intelligence structure changed, and the Renamo was now funded by the apartheid in South Africa. The Europeans and the Americans didn't so even intervene in the lives of Mozambicans in 1976 and around 2013 when they were sporadic disturbance after the 1992 Roma Accord, because their interests were not served. When Mozambique discovered oil in 2011 and the Europeans invested, and the terror group started the marauding wars in around 2017, the Europeans became interested because their interests were affected, meaning they don't value us, they value their prestige and their economic interests. Europeans and Americans don't value Africans shown by their inept to protect Africans from civil wars, which they've been fighting since the 1970s. The Mozambican Renamo has been funded by their kids and kin, and these European nations never made an effort to resolve the conflict. But now they are raising, they are even deploying troops in Cabo Delgado because Shell, Total, and other European countries' business interests are now affected. Right now in Mozambique, they are disturbing in central Mozambique from the breakaway of Renamo. But none of these European nations have suggested to deploy troops there. Why? Because they enjoy interest there. Angola underwent a blood civil war after its independence. And who was funded UNITA was Portugal. Portugal is an European nation. And none of these, the European Union or even the United States, talked about sending troops to stop the war in Angola. At one time, South African begged apartheid intervened to support UNITA, but none of these European nations raised a question or even tried to assist. At one time, UNITA's military prowess was more powerful than MPLA-led government. And if were it not for Cuba, Luanda would have fallen. And these European nations, they didn't see any problems with that. Then it was all fine when Africans were butchering each other because their interests were not served. The Democratic Republic of War is never known peace. The Democratic Republic of War, former Zaire, has got 90 minerals of economic interest. The reason why it has been never known peace
Simon,
is because
Saxon,
yes,
Saxon, you have 2 minutes to summarize.
okay. The Democratic Republic has never known
2 minutes to summarize your speech,
okay.
make your points, and we thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
The DRC war was supported by Belgium and the CIA, which actually imposed Mobutu Sese Seko. And when Mobutu Sese Seko was deposed, the Southern African nations supported Laurent Desire Kabila, and some of these nations, like Zimbabwe, paid dearly for affecting European interests in the DRC. And after the intervention of nations like Zimbabwe, the United Kingdom sided, the US sided the UK in the bilateral conflict, resulting in the imposition of sanctions on military establishment of the Zimbabwean government because they affected their European and American interests. Rwanda genocide in 1994, the same European nations never paid interest when Africans were butchering each other because their interests were not served. So the issue of military intervention in Africa by Europeans doesn't serve our interests, but promotes and perpetuates their hegemony. And after that military intervention, they come in with these NGOs, which are meant to perpetuate and protect their interests, thereby fostering policies meant to ensure their continued looking to enhance their economic hegemony. I submit.
All right, thank you so much, Saxon Spina, all the way from Harare, Zimbabwe, for that presentation. Next, I'll welcome Dr. David Matanga, who in return will bring us the next speaker, Simon Ekpa. Dr.
Thank you. Thank you very much, participants across the world, wherever you are in Africa, from West Africa in Banjul to East Africa in Asmara, North Africa in Cairo, South Africa in Cape Town, Central Africa in Kigali. Thank you very much for watching us. Thank you very much for listening to our show this morning. I hope we are still in the morning session. Afternoon, morning. What is the time? It's noon. Thank you very much. Now, there are 2 points that I want to make clear and to bring you back to the topic. Professor P.L.O. Lumumba raised a number of things. It looked like he changed the program, the question to us Africans. Am I wrong, Prof? You changed the question to us. And I want the next speakers to change and to answer those questions. Is it us who are the problem? Is the problem on the continent of Africa, or it is a continent which is a package that comes from France? There, I and the professor, we shall struggle on it in the afternoon again. I will be on a different side. I don't want to tell you, but I want other people to convince me that this problem is an African problem. It is us Africans who cause this problem. And we are part and parcel to blame. It is us who always become conduits of this war. It is us who call these guys to come in. Do we have the will to manufacture a toothpick How many African countries manufacture toothpicks? But our trees are cut in Garamba Park, in Mabira Forest. And then you see trucks and trucks of timber going to China for China to make toothpicks. And then we see women and men loaded in Kenya Airways, Uganda Airways, Qatar, Emirates, Air China, going to buy toothpicks and bring them back to sell them to us. So where is the problem, Prof? We want the speakers to focus. The problem of Mozambique is narcotics. And the President Nyusu, we are putting you on notice. This is not this is not going to be a honeymoon for you to hide under SADC and not to be told that you are part of the problem that caused the war in Cape Delgado. Yes. Yes. Why was this war not there when Chisano was there? That's why we need Chisano later on this afternoon. Frelimo is a party created, supported by Africa. As I bring in my next speaker, I want to thank both speakers, Professor Piero Lumumba, for significantly bringing in the aspect of our problem. In some African countries, we are told we have to have elections every 5 years. Do you have the money to hold election every 5 years? And then you go on borrowing this money. You are borrowing the money every time to do an election. Then when you cheat it, they come to say you borrowed our money and we want accountability. You say, no, this is my election. This is my country. This is my what? Have you seen the problem we have? Professor brought it on the table. This is the 21st century. Some African countries are telling people, instead of giving them technology, they are giving them all this stone edged equipment. Whew. Oh, yeah, what? What a show today. Bro, you brought something. There's something you spoke that touched my heart. This stone equipment of creating fire, of rubbing a stone on a stone when we have already moved. This is the poverty of faith we have on the continent of Africa. The arbitrary dictatorial tendencies of leaders in Africa. You talked of leaders gathering in African Union, Prof. Buhari also calls himself a leader. He gathers in African Union. When younger girls in Nigeria are being abducted every day, why don't you sit home like a Pombe Magufuli? The late did not attend these stupid things of AU, UN. Hey, Africa, we want to talk. Now, Saxon dealt with the background of colonial mentality. I want to keep you up to date with the debate. As Simon comes in, Simon Ekpa is a Biafran. He's a Biafran who struggles for independence of a Biafran state. Our work here is to listen, to talk to every African, as long as you are not a terrorist. Because we don't talk to terrorists. And we don't want people to label others terrorists because they want to have power. Don't label people terrorists because they have disagreed with you. on opinion. You label Al-Shabaab terrorists because they have uniform from Saudi Arabia. But you don't even condemn Saudi Arabia. Did they steal the uniform from Saudi Arabia? They come and use the same uniform to maim us in Nairobi and Kampala. And then you keep on saying, I'm an African, climbing an Airbus plane going to London. I'm an African head of union. I am an African, Paris. I am an African going to Germany to go and discuss. Why don't you ask questions? Why is Al-Shabaab wearing a uniform similar to Saudi Arabian army? Who gives them the uniform? Why are you not asking Saudi Arabia? How did the uniform that Al-Shabaab wears reach Mogadishu to disturb Farimajo's government? Today I'm on the side of Farimajo, unfortunately. Yeah. Yes, Nigeria is falling ship, sinking ship. A country with 200 million people with nothing to show in Africa, only Hollywood. What a shame. My next speaker comes from that country. He's a Biafran. And even if there's anybody who wants to counter him, the Nigerian embassy, you are listening. Wherever you are, come out. Don't operate underground. Come and we talk. Nigeria's problem is political, not judicial. You will not solve that problem judicially, in a judicial manner, sorry. You must solve it politically. My Africa, welcome Simon Ekpa. Simon Ekpa lives in Finland. He's a Biafran. His views are for Biafra and for the people of Africa. The question at hand today, EU, the conflict it supports on Africa or tries to prevent on Africa. Do they manufacture them for their interest or for the interest of Africans? That's the question. And the PLO answered it very well. We collect AK-47, we buy them. Small arms must be sold for the metros and the trains to work in Paris. Paris. Do you know that 3/4 of Africa is destabilized by Paris? Are you ashamed that after Afghanistan, the United States of America wants to offload gun, some conflict in Indian Ocean again, near Palma? What is Palma? The center of narcotics. Thank you very much, President Uhuru Kenyatta, for blowing a ship that came from Palma. Woohoo! Don't you see that? Very interesting. When the President Uhuru Kenyatta blew the ship on the sea in Mombasa, where I am, the world condemned him. Some people condemned him, you saw. But we people who have been fighting drugs against narcotics. But where was the narcotics coming from? Afghanistan. Where was it being offloaded? Palma. Why is Mozambique a conduit of narcotics? Wait for my paper this afternoon. Hallelujah, walai. It has to come out. For now, I call upon Simon to give us his views. Simon Ekpa.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I can see you are wearing the real African. Yes.
Thank you.
Simon You are wearing the real African attire of Kingdom of Africa. I love Biafrans. I've loved them, I've supported them since 1967. I supported them. My father was a good supporter. My president, Dr. Milton Obote, was a good supporter. I love Biafrans. Nyerere, my man, the mentor I follow, and whom Professor PLO here follows, loved Biafra. Kaunda, who went away a few days ago, loves Biafra. They were the first people who stood up and said, recognize Biafra. My father took me to that conference when I was a younger man and said, come to Kampala while you stay at your uncle's place in a place called Naguru, while we go for the conference in Speak Hotel. And I kept on saying, what is this problem that my father wants me to see? I did not know he was telling me you will one day stand up for 6 good years, free, voluntarily, defend what my father started together with others. I call upon Simon, you have 35 minutes. Take it away to 45 minutes. Bring us to perspective. Welcome, Simon, on board. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Matanga, for this wonderful opportunity given to me today to be part of this conference. I greet you. I thank you for setting up this particular conference where we will discuss issues affecting Africa as a whole. I also thank Professor Flo Lumumba for always being there for Africa as a Pan-African. I also thank him for the fact that he is now speaking the same language with us, and I really appreciate him for that. Also, welcome our viewers. Professor Lumumba has said a lot of things that I wanted to point out, and on that note, it is going to be a lesser problem for me. Professor Lumumba have pointed out a lot of things, including why have we ever wondered why the leaders in Africa are always going to some place to pay homage and get directive from them. Of course, this same question he has answered. I will also address it from my own perspective and from my own context. What is the problem of Africa? The topic today, as you said, is EU deployment in Africa conflict zone for political stability or for their own economic stability. First of all, the problem with Africa, especially the African leaders and Africans, is that when we take one step forward, we take 10 steps backward. What do I mean by this? I mean that when Africa take one step forward, they take 10 steps backward. We remember the history of Kenya, the history of Uhuru Kenyatta. Uhuru Kenyatta's father, when he was being persecuted for fighting for freedom of his people, Biafrans, and a Biafran leader in the name of Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe gave him protection in Biafra land. We Biafra people, we stand very tall to protect the father of Uhuru Kenyatta. the president of Kenya today. That was a step forward. That was a step forward to serve humanity, respect for freedom, respect for self-determination. That was so many years ago. Today, in 2020, in 2021, Uhuru Kenyatta has paid that same Biafra with 20 steps backward. That is what I can say is the problem of Africa. Our leader, the leader of indigenous people of Biafra, were abducted in Kenya by the Nigerian government, kidnapped, taken to a private apartment in Kenya with the help of the Kenya authorities, police. Instead of Uhuru Kenyatta to offer something that Biafra people offered to his father, he betrayed Biafra. That is 20 steps backward. And I am calling on Kenyans today to know this fact before I go forward into making my presentation, that we are demanding Kenya to step up and make sure that our leader who was abducted in Kenya will be repatriated back to Kenya or where he come from. It is a breach of Kenya law. It is a breach of Kenya constitution. It was a breach of Kenya sovereignty, and the Kenya people must not allow this to happen, and they must not keep quiet. Nigeria cannot come into Kenya and abduct somebody from a different country and you are all keeping quiet. So I'm calling on Uhuru Kenyatta to remember that Biafra people that he allowed Nigeria to kidnap today, we also offer the same help to his father. And as a result of the help we offer to his father, that is the reason why Kenya is as it is today. Kenya were able to be a better country today because of the selfless service, because of the sacrifice of the Uhuru Kenyatta's father, of which Nnamdi Azikiwe, a Biafran, and Biafra people were part and parcel of that sacrifice. Now, going further, whether this European invasion or presence in Africa is for us, is for Africa people, I will want to say this. I also thank Professor Lumumba for the fact that he acknowledged and agreed that in Africa, especially in Nigeria, we have a dangerous diversity. Dangerous diversity that must be dismantled for us to move forward and progress. Some of you do not understand how life works. For us to have a better life, for us to have a better and secure society, we need to undergo a very rigorous and tough process. Very tough process. I want to tell you that for a diamond to be formed, it has to undergo about 2000 to 2002 degree of heat, of temperature, to be able to form and become diamond. This is also a principle of life. For the world today, let me tell you one thing. The life we live in today, this global village, the Western world, the America, the Asia, that everybody is enjoying today, had undergone over 2000 degrees of temperature to become what it is. The European that are sending or deploying some troop in Africa for stability has also undergone 2000 degrees of heat to be able to become stable, to have the opportunity and the possibility to begin to send troops to Africa. How were they able to become this stable? They undergo wars. They went through wars. Wars. Let me now give a little bit illustration to this. For example, somebody who were giving birth in 1900. If you are giving birth in 1900, the process of the world becoming a diamond started in 1914. The World War First begins in 1914. So if you are born, or if you were born in 1900, at age of 14, you already witnessed the First World War. As the world continued to undergo the process of this 2,200 degrees to become diamond, when you become the age of 18, over 22 million people were dead as a result of the First World War. As time goes by, shortly after that, you had what we called the Spanish pandemic. The Spanish pandemic killed over 50 million people. This same corona you see today, we have had it. All these things are part of design for the world and the global village to undergo a very high degree of heat. Spanish flu killed over 50 million people. But if you were born in 1900, by then you are 20 years old. Then as you grow, at the age of 29, we had what we called the economic crisis, global economic crisis, which collapsed the New York exchange, causing inflation, unemployment, and hunger all over the world. So, and if you were born in 1900, you were just 29 years old. The world was still undergoing the degree and the very highest degree of temperature for us to have a global village we have today. As you continue to grow from the economic crisis, you become 33 years. In your 33 years, 3 years later, or 4 years later, you have the Nazis coming to power in the West. And as the Nazis came to power in the West, you continue to manage your life and grow up to 39. At the age of 39, you have what we call the World War II. The World War II began when you were 39 years old. And that was what led to the Holocaust, where over 6 million Jews were slaughtered. That was the world and the global village undergoing a process that will later shape in the world to what we have today. And in that World War II, over 60 million people died, and they were just 39 years old. At the age of 45, you have seen the Holocaust. So when you grow and continue to grow, you get to 52 years old. The Korean War began. It is a process. So those who were born from 1900 did not have easy life. But you know what? They paid the price. They made wrong decisions. There were wars, there were killings, and that has propelled the world to begin to think on a way to avoid crisis and avoid World War II or World War III. That led to the creation of United Nations. When you were 64 years old, the Vietnam War began. They fought Vietnam War until you are like 75 years old. Why am I saying this? Because if you were born in 1980 something, 1985 to 1995, you would not understand the history, how this world has undergone all manner of degree of temperature to be able to shaping it the way it is today. As the world were undergoing this degree of temperature, it did not affect Africa. During the World War, it did not affect Africa. Africa was on their own. Most of them didn't see bomb. Like Hiroshima, they did not see bomb being thrown on Africa's soil. So, in 2020, you sit in your comfort zone and you say, we must not agitate for freedom of our people. In 2021, you say, we must all sit down and see Africa being destroyed. In 2021, we have seen opportunity how to reshaping Africa, how to restructure Africa, how to make Africa one of the best continents in the world. And for Africa to become one of the best in the world, it has to undergo a process. For those who are using South Sudan as example, that when Nigeria is divided, you are going to have crisis. For those who are using those countries like South Sudan to say, if you get Biafra, you are going to have crisis. Let me tell you, as you continue to allow the West to control you, claiming that in diversity, you are going to be better. Let me tell you this. If you continue to allow Africa to remain the way it is, you are only compiling the problem. It is mental torture. Mental torture. Because what is happening in South Sudan today shouldn't have happened if the freedom were given to them 30 years ago, when the war started in Sudan. The problem you have in South Sudan today, you are not going to have it. But because of the mental torture the Southern Sudanese went through for 30 good years involved in battlefield. It was as a result of mental torture. And it is going to take a while for Southern Sudan to come back to normal and become the best. And you see them attaining their best and best potential. Biafra fought a war with Nigeria. We were able to hold Nigeria for 3 good years. Biafra were recognized by many countries in Africa and other parts of the world. Today, we have come to say, because of the impunity in Nigeria, because of the dangerous diversity in Nigeria, because we want the best for Africa, we say we want the freedom of Biafra from Nigeria. And the more you delay this freedom of Biafra people, the more you subject Biafrans to mental slavery, mental torture, physical torture, that will also affect their mental reasoning their brains, just the way the South Sudan are going, what they are going through today. The only difference why Biafra can never be the same thing with South Sudan is because Biafrans are more civil. We are scattered all over the world. We have governed ourselves before South Sudan. We have tested the sovereign state between 1967 to 1970. We have been able to govern ourselves during the Eastern region, and we are going to do it again, and we are going to do better. So what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is that Africa needs to disintegrate to enable it have a very formidable force and unity. Before you talk about solving the crisis that made the Europeans to deploy troops to Africa, you need to know what is the root cause of this crisis. What is the root cause of the crisis? What is the root cause of the wars in Africa? The cause of the crisis in Africa is as a result of dangerous diversity. Every place you see conflict today in Africa is as a result of diversity. Cultural differences, religious differences, political differences, different political opinions, which are very dangerous as a result of many years of subjugation and slavery. So what I'm saying now is that the more you delay disintegration of Africa, which will start from Nigeria, the more doom that is going to befall Africa. What we are doing now is to save the future. We may not be the one to enjoy whatever we are fighting for today, but we are fighting for future generation of Africa. But if you continue to delay the disintegration of Africa, just like the European Union have it, you are subjecting people to mental torture, which will have a side effect, which will come with consequences. The consequences of such can be seen in South Sudan. South Sudan is a very good example, is a very good case study. Had it been that the United Nations came to the rescue of South Sudan like 30 years ago, you will not have the conflict you have in South Sudan today. But because they allowed them to continue to have the mental torture for over 30 years, how do you think you are going to be in war, fighting war for 30 years, and you are going to remain the same? You can never remain the same. And the people who are going to enjoy South Sudan will be the generation to come. This generation of South Sudan will continue to pay the price of long subjugation, of long slavery, of long mental torture, which the world subjected them to. We do not want to undergo the same process with South Sudan. That is why, if you love Africa, you must rise up today to agree and identify the fact that Nigeria needs to be disintegrated, and other African countries that feel that they are not the same need to be disintegrated for a better Africa to emerge. Today, we see troops from France. Why are the France or French people sending troops to Africa? Why are there the conflict there in Africa? Because of diversity. This diversity must be disintegrated in order for peace to return to Africa. When we divide Africa along tribal line, when we divide these countries along tribal line, French will not have no reason to send troops. But the more you delay this disintegration of Africa, the more you delay the disintegration of Nigeria, the more you are subjecting the people to mental slavery and mental torture. The more you are creating room for crisis when they eventually emerge. Let me also tell you, the top 5 countries that had their independence. I want you to show me where a country called Palau. Palau is an independent country. They have population of about 21,500 people. Are you aware of that? A country called Palau. Palau got independence in 1994. They had about 2,100 people as a population. Do you see any crisis there? The answer is no. It is not a matter of population. It is not a matter of size. But I'm telling you today that Palau as a country, independent state, they got their independence in 1994 and there are just 21,000 people in that country. Do you also know about East Timor? East Timor got its independence in the year 2002. Why? Even though there may be some kind of disagreement there as a part of society, but it is not the kind of disagreement, it is not the kind of crisis you have in a very dangerous country where you have dangerous diversity like Nigeria. You also may have heard about Montenegro and Serbia. Montenegro and Serbia got their independence in 2006. Do you see any crisis killing like in South Sudan? The answer is no. So the question is why? Why are they not killing in Montenegro? Why are there not killings in Serbia? Why are there not crises like in these places like in South Sudan? Because South Sudan in Africa has been subjugated to mental torture for 30 good years of war. Why would the UN allow South Sudan to fight a very bloody war for 30 good years? It has affected their mental capacity and they are no longer normal. So the people who are going to enjoy South Sudan will be the generation that is coming. And by then, you are going to use South Sudan as a case study of countries that have worked and progressed. Another country is Kosovo. Kosovo got independent in 2008. Do you have in Kosovo the kind of crisis you have in South Sudan? The answer is no. Why South Sudan got its independence in 2011? 2011. From 2011 to now, you are using South Sudan as a case study why you cannot support Biafra. It is very absurd. So what we are saying is we need to copy. We need to copy. Copy is allowed. Look at how Europeans were able to disintegrate their country along tribal line. Biafra, Oduduwa, Ambazonia, and all this country must be allowed to go their separate way. To give the opportunity to develop according to how they want to develop their country. We talk about our leaders going to pay homage to other leaders of the world. It is because of inferiority complex. Because of inferiority complex, because of greed, because of ignorance. Ignorant in the sense that, tell me if during the 1960s or before 1960s, Uhuru Kenyatta father will come to Biafra for refuge. And the Biafra people granted him protection. We gave him food. In Enugu State today, in Enugu State, in Biafra land, we even named the street before Kenyatta, Uhuru Kenyatta's father. Our territory, our street were named after Uhuru Kenyatta for fighting for the freedom of his people. But what are we getting today in return? We are getting backstabbing and betrayal from the same man we helped his father. Had it been that Uhuru Kenyatta's father did not come to Biafra, who would know his fate today? Who would know what will become of this current Kenya president today? Nobody knows. I have not come to this conference to insult him. But this is the part of problem of Africa. Betrayal, betrayal, betrayal. When we are talking of how to develop Africa, how to be on top of this game in global village, globally, we see people who are educated, who knows laws, who knows treaties, who understand what diplomacy means. They are breaching it, betraying their own people with impunity. We saw Uhuru Kenyatta in London. The Kenya have come to give a statement denying their involvement. But the question is, were Mazi Nnamdi Kanu actually in Kenya? The answer is yes. This is part of the problem of Africa. We need to begin to understand that a disintegrated Africa will favor every one of us. We need to understand that as France and the French people are sending troops to Africa, they are sending troops to Africa because they are comfortable in their own country. The question is, what makes French so comfortable in their own country? Is because they have one language, they have one cultural value, they understand each other, they know that dividing along tribal line will keep them on top of the world. They know that the system of government the European Union have adopted will continue to keep them on top of everybody. We also want to enjoy the democracy. We want to enjoy a good society. We want to live like them because Africa is where you get all the natural and mineral resources that you use. You see today that Europeans, America, Asians are using to develop their own country. Professor Lumumba made a very important pronouncement, very important references on this conference today. And I agree with most of the things, if not all. The question now is, how do we solve this problem? How do we solve this problem? We will solve this problem by confronting our problem in Africa. We cannot solve this problem by shying away. When we see the problem confronting us, standing right before us, we need to confront it and solve it. How do we confront this problem? Everybody must start to speak and understand that the liberation of Africa starts from Nigeria. the liberation of Africa starts from Nigeria. The end of insurgency in Africa starts from Nigeria. Africa needs a country that will become a role model to other countries in Africa. As it stands today, like Professor Lumumba said, the leaders of Africa have failed. There are few leaders who can do and still stand on their word. But many of these African leaders have failed, and they will continue to fail. There is only one opportunity, only one possibility to solve it, is by looking into the Africa most populous country, Nigeria. Nigeria that sponsors terrorists, Nigeria that sponsors terrorism, Nigeria that sponsors extraordinary rendition, Nigeria that sponsors kidnapping, Nigeria that go into another man's country to kidnap and repatriate a suspect. How do you think that Nigeria and Africa is going to be better? When you see one another betraying when you see one country betraying another, breaching their other country's law with impunity. How can you have a better Africa when Uhuru Kenyatta is the chairman of African Union or something, and you see another African country coming inside his own country to have somebody kidnapped? And today, nobody is talking about it. How can you have a better country? How can you have a better continent? How can you have a better Africa with that kind of mentality? Everybody have suddenly realized that Gaddafi was doing a good job. Because of the absence of Gaddafi today, you were able to know that Gaddafi was the man that has been doing a good job. It was because of the fall of Libya that the crisis, arms and ammunition spread all over Africa. Who brought those arms to Libya? Who brought those arms to Libya? It was Obama. Where is Obama? Where is Obama from? Obama's father is from Kenya. Kenya. And Obama sponsored rebels in Libya against a sitting president called Gaddafi. They pumped arms and ammunition into Libya rebels in Africa to destabilize the North Africa. Today, we are seeing the consequences of what Obama did in Libya. There is now free arm movement in entire Africa. Boko Haram, ISWAP, ISIS, Al-Shabaab, Al-Qaeda, all of them using American weapons that was shipped to Libya to overthrow Gaddafi. Now, which one is better? Is it that Gaddafi could have been allowed to live and continue his evil, if there is any evil at all? Or would you now look back to the days of Gaddafi and say, you are now proud Africa for supporting the invasion of Libya? When Gaddafi was killed, the same African leaders was the one who sold and betrayed Gaddafi. All these African leaders, African president, they supported the American invasion in Libya. And that is exactly what Lumumba has pointed out. They take instructions from other countries. It is very, very worrisome and very absurd if we continue to allow these ignorant, incompetent leaders in Africa to continue. We have the possibility, we have the opportunity, we are in a better position as people of the modern age to tell how we want Africa to be. And we have come to realize that the problem of Africa is because we did not divide along tribal line. The countries of Africa will undergo a process that will now reshaping Africa. And that process has started in Nigeria. The process is not going to be very easy. We want to have a referendum in Nigeria to enable us set the ground for a better Africa. But like everybody knows, they say you cannot get freedom by peaceful means. You cannot get freedom by peaceful means. But there are countries who have conducted referendum and they have their independence. I am calling on all leaders today in Africa to remember that if you turn your back on Nigeria, if you turn your back and close your back on Nigeria, if you say it is not your business, let me tell you, the time is coming when it is going to be your business. By the time the terrorists take over Nigeria, it will become your business. By then, you will be saying, had I known, I would have supported Biafra people. Let me tell you, Nigerians will invade your country for asylum. Nigerians will invade your country for asylum. And after they deal with Nigeria, capture Nigeria, which is, by the way, at this point, the most populous African country, do you think that your country of 4 million, do you think that your country of 5 million, do you think that your country of 20 million will not be run over by the terrorists from Nigeria? If that is what you are thinking, think again after this conference today. If terrorists can run over 200 million in Nigeria, what is your country? What is your capacity? What is your military strength? If the terrorists being sponsored by Nigerian government can hold Cameroon, Chad, Niger, Niger Republic, and Nigeria to ransom, what makes you think that your country will not be invaded and attacked in due time? What you do to Nigeria today, as you are talking on behalf of Biafrans, you are also saving the future of your own country. If you refuse to do that, the time is coming when the terrorists that are terrorizing Nigeria today will remember your country and they will remember your region. And when that time comes, you must have missed the opportunity you should have used to support Biafrans, to support Biafra independence, so that by the time Nigeria disintegrates, you are going to have Oduduwa nation, which will have military power. You are going to have Biafra nation, which is going to have their own military strength. You are going to have the Middle Belt, which is going to have their own military strength. And without infiltration of the terrorists, without being compromised, we will rise up together and fight terrorists and chase them away from the region of Sahel. When we succeed in doing that, we have made Africa a safer place for everybody. Do not think that today, because of Nigeria predicament, it is not your business. We have Al-Shabaab in Kenya. Al-Shabaab is very active in Kenya, although they are not as active as the terrorists in Sahel. But I'm telling you to think about it. By the time Boko Haram join forces with Al-Shabaab in Kenya, they will run over you people in a couple of months. By the time they found safe haven in Nigeria, make Nigeria the safe haven, put their hand in our oil money, in our natural resources. They're already mining gold and other mineral resources in Nigeria. By the time they find safe haven in Nigeria, they are going to join hand with Al-Shabaab. And once they join hand with Al-Shabaab, I want to know how many population you have in Kenya. It will not take them long to run over you. How many population do you have in Mozambique? It will not take them long to run over you. This is a long-term planning that we all must rise up. As you are solving Biafra problem, you are solving your future problem. Don't say that Nigeria problem does not concern you. So long as you are an African, Nigeria problem is your problem. So long as you find yourself in Africa's soil, Nigeria problem is your problem. We have also had the United Nations, the United States Intelligence Agency reporting that the terrorists were trying to work together in Nigeria. That was 2 years ago. Today, ISWAP has joined forces with Boko Haram. Today, they have elected governor in Borno State in the northeast of Nigeria. Today, they have their own government within government. So if you think that this is not your problem, it is your problem. Professor Lumumba, I must commend you. We want to see more of you, Professor Lumumba, because you are one of the respected person in Africa. You have been the one talking and preaching to government officials in Africa. We want to see more of you because your word is taken very, very seriously in Africa. So, Professor Lumumba, this job of educating African leaders, it is not we cannot just only focus on telling them corruption. We have to also focus on enlightening them, telling them why the corruption has persisted. The corruption has persisted means because the people, the structure of countries in Africa, they are fraudulent structure. And you cannot build a better society in a fraudulent foundation. You can't stop. You cannot stop corruption in Africa when the foundation is faulty. So let us leave corruption and focus on the problem that is bringing and aiding and abetting corruption activity in Africa, which is that the structure and the foundation is faulty. And we need to go back to drawing board. We need to go back to the European structure where they divide along tribal line. You think in those days that the crisis you are having in Africa today, you did not witness them in Europe? The crises are there in Yugoslavia, in Russia, in Czechoslovakia. All these places witnessed this crisis. What gave birth to this crisis was the diversity. It could not work. European Union decided to divide along tribal line to avoid any kind of political turmoil. Today they are progressing along tribal line. So my brother, my professor, my land brother and friend, Professor Lumumba, let us focus on telling Africa where the problem started, how it could be solved. The corruption can never end in Africa if you did not address it from the fundamental and from the foundation, which is the foundation and the structure of each country in Africa. We need to begin to look inward, divide ourselves along tribal line, and we are going to start from Nigeria. Thank you very much for having me today, and let me know if I'm going to make a different presentation in the afternoon of this program. Thank you, Professor Lumumba. Thank you, viewers, other panelists. Thank you, Dr. Matsanga, for having me, and I rest my case here.
Thank you very much, Simon. Before you go, I want to take this opportunity to tell the world that I thank you very much for agreeing to take part in this conference. And don't give up all the time. You are giving another speech this afternoon after His Excellency President, former President of Mozambique, Chisano, has given us a few remarks. So don't give up. We shall return here about 3 p.m. No, not to return. We are not breaking now. We have a lady coming. You notice that, Simon, you have made a few serious points. I don't want people to lose sight of what you have done, you have said. The first point you have made is the collapse of Nigeria means chaos for Africa. Very serious. If Nigeria collapses, imagine how many terrorists we shall have for Boko Haram coming to our doorsteps. Isn't it true? He has made that point. I agree with you on that. Already, Turkey has divided Africa. It has sent troops to Libya, dividing Libya into two parts between France and Turkey. You have a point there, my brother. Look at the number of terrorists that are flowing through to Chad, going to kill Idris. Look at the number of terrorists that are flowing through Egypt to Tigray. You remember in Ethiopia? Another point I want to make as you go, before you leave. Yes, I am one of the few people who have stood up against Buhari. And I will not leave it now not to say something about Buhari before you leave. I'm not worried. I am 65 years old. Buhari should be 80 or 85, I don't know. Is he 85? He should be gone. You see, he's a general, I'm also a soldier. You can threaten civilians. Buhari and Nigeria, you Biafrans, listen first. Buhari is a very dangerous man. He abducts people. He abducts people. In 1984, he tried to abduct Umar Diko. Umar Diko was found in a coffin in Stansted Airport by the British MI5, MI6, and the Metropolitan Police. When you are dealing with Buhari, that is his landmark, that is his trade. Buhari trade is to kill, to kidnap. He can kidnap. I have seen a lot of, it could have been in any country. Simon, I want to make this clear. It could have been in any country. Because Buhari seemed to have been following Mr. Namdi Khan from London. We seem to be checking. We might be pointing fingers elsewhere. But I want to advise you, Biafrans, to start searching your souls to find out the people Buhari uses to monitor your leaders. I'm telling you today, I have been in a struggle, an armed struggle, worse than Namdi Khan's for 36 years. I've been having running battles with President Museveni of Uganda. We never saw each other eye to eye. Even when he comes to Nairobi, those days I used to fly out. If he comes to London, I used to make 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 Ugandans to crowd the hotel. And he could be taken by helicopter from Hilton Hotel. This is the Matanga who used to do it. And I kept my faith. I was always ahead of an enemy. And I want to tell you, Simon, today, be ahead of this enemy, Buhari. As an elder, I'm giving you advice. Always be ahead. All leaders of IPOP, be ahead. You might condemn people who are your friends for nothing. But to be ahead, know that the man you have as the president is a kidnapper. Kanu could have been kidnapped anywhere in Tanzania, in Cameroon, in Addis Ababa, because Buhari monitored Kanu from London where he was staying or wherever he was staying. None of us knew where he was. Only Buhari knew his movements. So don't finish anger and destroy anger on other people when the biggest problem in the house is your man called Buhari. Why is he not telling the world how he was able to steal a person? Why do you turn it on innocent people? We are now also, some of us are asking very seriously questions to the world. We are not keeping quiet. The British government must come out and tell the world one of their nationals is lying in a prison, communicado, under the hands of the flying killer man, sitting on his body without any prosecution, without being brought out of the court to the court. That's my position. Don't condemn everybody. Don't. People must use the language which has decorum to persuade people to continue to talk about the release of Nnamdi Kanu, to give him a fair trial. And we are not going to sit here like children all the time. Condemnation. Condemnation must go to the man himself. He's in London hospital, will be there. Organize a demonstration for him to be taken out of the hospital, to be treated in a bunker somewhere. That's the guy. That's the master. You don't play for the second fiddle. Play for the master. The master of this whole exercise is the government of Nigeria. The plane could have landed in Zanzibar. Still, he had a plan to take Nnamdi Kanu. Yes. Yes. Every day you speak, you talk, you insult people. But I want you to take this. See who is the main problem here. The main perpetrator is Buhari. And earlier you pointed this mistake to the British government. Who are those in the British Nigerian High Commission in London who are not working as diplomats, but they are working as espionage agents? Hello? Simon, you hear me today?
I hear you, Masanga. Thank you very much.
You hear me today? Namdi Khan has not fought for 36 years. I've fought a government of Uganda for 36 years. You must always be ahead of them, not them to be ahead of you. For all leaders of IPOB, listen to my lips to them. Don't move carelessly. Don't. I don't want to say many things here. Because after all this, I went back to find what is not supposed to be done. Never, never. And I regret. I should not have, had I known, I should not have done that interview. I would have helped. Next time, those who are near IPOB, listen to me. The people of Biafra look at you. Some of us who are friends of Biafra want you to succeed. I've told you my father was a negotiator. Where were you? My father negotiated my president, whom I served, and whom I served, whom I left Uganda when I was serving. He's dead, but I still honor him. I've never changed sides. Look at me. Look at me, God. Look at me, whatever he is. What has happened that I'm speaking, the English he taught me. Yes, that I'm speaking the Pan-Africanism that he told me I should stand firm and speak. But I'm always ahead. That's it. Thank you, Simon. The factor of Turkey. Turkey has become another neo-colonial state on African continent. Turkey has become a new colonizer. Turkey is sponsoring terrorists to dismember Africa. Turkey has become a bad state. It has killed Libya. Yes, under the auspices of European Union, isn't it? Under the auspices of European Union. I want you to listen to my paper this afternoon. I've not given my paper. Whatever I'm talking is coming from my political science and international relations knowledge which I have, which I can talk without any paper on me. But I'm bringing a paper this afternoon. The departure of Americans from Afghanistan means trouble. Why Mozambique is in chaos? Narcotics. Woohoo! Narcotics. Why are we hiding? Simon, I thank you very much. I agree with you with that point. That if Nigeria collapses and there is no Biafra to help us, terrorists will swamp our cities and kill us. The African Union is also captured by another man, a Fulani from Chad. That's why he doesn't talk about Nigeria. He's a Fulani from Chad called Muhammad Faki. He just springs up and goes and brings Israel to divide Africa. Have you seen that? Didn't I predict to you that African Union will divide in two parts? Simon, didn't I say that? Is African Union together today? We have Algeria leading over 34 countries who are not happy with African Union. And I told you I will set the fire I will set the fire. I will set the fire. PLO Lumumba is here. He can talk. He doesn't set the fire. I have set the fire. There is no African Union. African Union is captured by France. Our chairman of African Union is more visible in Paris than he is visible in Addis Ababa. Shame, 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 Africa. With those words, I want now to call upon my sister from Lusaka, Zambia. My sister from Lusaka, Zambia. I have set the stage for you, sir. Madam.
Thank you very much.
Ladies, hold on. Ladies and gentlemen, you notice that men only have been speaking this morning. Let this lady give us lunch time so that she gives us saliva enough to go and eat our food during lunch. Madam, serve us the lunch menu. My sister Mutinta, Mutanti, Sowe from Zambia, which is having elections near Mozambique, near Zimbabwe, that they have wanted to kill. They have wanted to kill Zimbabwe. We stood for Zimbabwe. Hallelujah, Matanga stood for Zimbabwe. Today, Mnangagwa is leading it in the right direction. Yes. What I struggled before I got it. I did not want Mugabe to be killed by imperialists. I wanted Mugabe to die his own death. And I won. There was no violent regime change from Tony Blair. No. That's a plus for me. The war in Uganda stopped. Yes, that's a plus for me. It's a legacy. What else do you want me to do? President Museveni is getting more votes in northern Uganda because this mouth here went to speak to a rebel who had killed 1 million people to stop killing and sign documents. The 5 agenda that was signed, Dr. Oriem is there, he's a Ugandan. Peace returned, even when the rebel did not sign, but my paper and my signature gave peace to northern Uganda. Hallelujah. Yes. Tell me. You think you haven't seen my other side, PLO. PLO can have the English. And I have the experience. He's a lawyer in English. I have the experience in political science. You never lie me about international bad relations. If your student is running international relations, your child tear the report. There is nothing like international relations. Thank you very much. Thank you, my people of Biafra. I now call upon Zambia. Zambia, Mutinta Masowe. You are welcome. Next, after Zambia, starting after lunch, which will be 2 o'clock. We shall take a break and come back at 2 o'clock sharp. Will be Dr. Will be my dear brother David Kusowe, then followed by Juliet Mahapira, then followed by Dr. Nyachama coming in down there. Then we go to Uganda. There is a gentleman who has requested to speak. He follows, we shall tell you. But those people, prepare your papers. for Africa. Then followed by a lady from Khartoum, the woman who stood on top of the tank. Ha! Today the show is very interesting. And then there will be a keynote speech. Then Simon, after that keynote speech, you come in from Mozambique. We shall tell you from Mozambique, from the office, from Chisana. Why Mozambique is going down? Perhaps you'll tell us. Mutita, take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Looking at the topic at hand, which is EU deployment in African conflict zones for political stability or for their own economic stability. Firstly, I would love to talk about a story that my father always just tells us as siblings in our house. My father always says to us, he tells us to say, you can only defend yourselves if you stick together. You can only defend yourselves if you don't take out your conflicts from within the household outside. Because once you take out that conflict and the disagreements that you have amongst yourself as siblings, an enemy from outside will be able to will be able to come in and they will use that against you. So make sure you manage to sort out conflict within the household. Similarly to what is happening right now in Africa in relation to the topic that we are discussing today. Of course, when you look at conflict is as a result of a misunderstanding between two or more people. So in this case, the misunderstanding can come as a result of either maybe political, social, economical, spiritual. It can be in different ways on how conflict can come in. So in this case, we look at the topic at hand on the AU, how it's kind of taking advantage of whatever conflicts that we have in Africa to.
Right, all right. Thank you. As you can see, I'm going on break now. And I have to rush to the office. And come back again for the evening or the afternoon program, where we are going to be having the the ex-president or former president of Mozambique, and I'm going to also make a different speech, a different presentation from a different perspective. So we are on top of this. We are going to be talking and hitting it the way it should be. So don't miss the next program coming up after my break. I'm going to be live again. Remember, this is happening on Enter Biafra Channel 1, where you are watching live and direct. Don't miss it. We are going to have the ex-president Joaqui, the former president of Mozambique, is going to be there, and I will also talk my mind, as always. Remember, the struggle for Biafra continue, and this is how we are doing it, and this is how we'll be doing it. Some people will say, Simon Ekpa, that you should leave Simon Ekpa with his individual private chat with. Yes, I'm sorry. I think we have some connection we have some connection issue there. So for those who were thinking that this is Simon Ekpa private chat on Punchline Africa, I hope you have seen the private chat. This is how private chat is done. And as we are doing this, we are also reshaping the mind of African leaders who are watching this program. The African leaders watching the program, they will know the truth, especially those who do not, who do not understand, what is going on. We are going to be talking, and we'll continue to talk. So see you in the afternoon. Do not miss the program in the afternoon. We are coming back, and you are going to listen to the presentation or the speech of the ex-president. Let us listen to how they think now, because, they are the people who have ruled Africa, who are ruling Africa. So let us listen to how this former president of Mozambique, what is, their thought, like how they think. And we are going to respond accordingly, and we are going to address their speech, and we're going to address what he said, and see if we can bunyego de obeluche. All right. Remember, we are going to turn every stone. Thank you very much for watching. May God bless you and bless Biafra and bless Ududua, bless Middle Belt, bless IPOB Worldwide, bless ESN, bless Mazedam Decano, bless you watching me. Thank you very much. See you in the
Attention, attention. IPOB One Family. This announcement is for those outside of the USA that wish to donate to the Eastern Security Network Fund that is based in the United States. Because of the fees that donators have to pay the bank when sending wires, we recommend that if you're sending less than $250, that you donate through the IPOB USA website. It's fast, simple, and less expensive for you. Go to our website, www.ipobinusa.org/donate. That is www.ipobinusa.org/donate and make your contribution. When it comes to keeping our people safe, every bit counts. After all, the security of our communities is our responsibility. Let's make this happen together.
Yeah, Mr. Bella once again. Wisdom, heal it, come on, get up. Say Biafra will not last forever. They say happy up in no go stand. What did they know? What do they know? What do they see? What do they see? If you give me a gun, I will shoot them aside. If you give me a gun, I will shoot them aside. If you give me a gun, I will shoot them aside. If you give me a gun, I will shoot them aside. If you give me a gun, I will shoot them aside. No. Biafra will live forever. 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 Ogerugo manige tetanura. The lovers of Biafra. This is the time we need to come together and fight for what is belong to us. Ogerugo maniga bandits who want to make us a giant of Africa. Ada coaching team na Sugo Mbogeru ni sina nyama kweno. Hello Lisa Binigwe out of his wisdom, giving us somebody like Nnamdi Kanu for this our raceful mission. Biafra will not last forever. They say happy up in no go stand. What did they know? What do they know? What do they see? What do they see? If you give me a gun, I go shoot them aside. If you give me a gun, I go shoot them aside. If you give me a gun, I go shoot them aside. If you give me a gun, I go shoot them aside. If you give me a gun, I go shoot them aside. Oh no. See Ojukwu, our hero, how he fought, he never stop. Mazinamdi cannot but no can we stop, he cannot stop. Biafra only forever.
That heavy duty catapult where them call Operation Ghost Town, goes to cities, goes to markets, goes to schools, goes to road, goes to offices, goes everything for the whole of Biafra land. If you know say I dey here, nobody go know where you dey. Now him make the indigenous people of Biafra, where you and me, the proper indigene, don't come to tell how our land will be till they release our leader, Mazen Nnamdi Kanu, the man who don't sacrifice everything sacrificable for the freedom of his people, including for me and you. If you know like what they happen for Ebonyi, Imo State, Akwa Ibom, Cross River, Iguacha, Anambra, Enugu, Delta, and even for your Domoto, you must join this movement. This one no be APC, PDP, ABGA, no Muneya, Wemegu. No. This one, Operation Ghost Town, plus including suspension of all campaigns and the election in all Biafra land, together with political activities. Governors and politicians in Biafra land must draw their ear down well to hear this instruction. This operation will go kickstart from Monday night August, go touch light every Monday until they release our leader. Son, husband, brother, cousin, uncle, Mazen Nnamdi Kanu. Anybody will say him ear, no they hear well. Must understand. Say, drunken fowl go meet mad fox. Stand up for your right now. Stand up for your freedom. Don't give up the fight. As you observe your prayer meeting weekly activities, now so you must observe this Monday's Operation Ghost Towns in Biafra land, for freedom is life. As you know the tire for 40 days praying and fasting with the Tara night, and in Peking, see sowing, you must not get tired of this because you need freedom the way you need blood, need air, need food to survive. The time is now. We must have our freedom. Everybody must join hands. This message is from the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, under the leadership and command of Onyendu Mazen Nnamdi Kanu. Nwanne ajụkwala m gịnị ka anyị ga-eme dịka nkwa na-adagharị ala a na-atụgharịakwala akwụkwọ egwu n'ihi na otu ọnụ ihe jide ugbu a ndị nwe ala Biafra bụ indigenous people of Biafra IPOB ekpebiela otu ala n'obodo ha ga-adị n'ihi na ọ na-aba ajụwa ajụjụ ala ajụ ewi ebe ọ bụ mgbe ọbụla ajụwala nkwụ kapịawana ị mara na mgbupụ ya eruwala. Ya mere ha jiri kpebie na malite na Mọnde abalị 30 nke ọnwa asatọ n'afọ a na a ga-enwe ihe a na-akpọ Operation Ghost Town n'ala Biafra niile. Nke a ga-ewere ọnọdụ na Mọnde niile ruo mgbe ha ga-atọhapụ onye ndu anyị ji eme ọnụ, nwaanyị, di anyị, nwanne anyị nwoke, ma bụrụkwa onye na-ewere ihe niile o nwere jiri chụọ àjà maka nwere onwe nke ndị Biafra, nke mụ na gị so n'ime ya wụ ndị ọsọ ahịa. Bikonu kwanyekwara n'ụlọ onwe unu ukwu n'oge ndị a ga-enwe Operation Ghost Town n'ala Biafra niile, n'ihi na ọ bụghị ọsọ ahịa ka e gụrụ na mara ha dum na-echefuo ndị haya purchase, ndị na-agba kama m ga-anwụ anwụ ka m fuo efuo. Biko, maka na ọkụkọ manya na-egbu marakwa na ọ ga-adị ihu ufu ara na-agba ọ bụrụ na mwakpo, ntọrọ, mkpachi, ịchị ọnụ n'ala na ntaramahụhụ ha na-enye nwanne anyị nwoke bụ Mazen Nnamdi Kanu n'ụlọ ndị DSS n'ihi nwere onwe anyị, tinyere mkpamkpa na njinji na-eji n'Imo steeti, Ebonyi, Enugu, Delta, Iguacha, Akwa Ibom, Abia na ebe ndị ọzọ anyị na-akpọghị aha adịghị mma. Nwanne menu observe ghost town, ghost cities, ghost market, schools, offices na ụmụnne ya niile. Ajụkwala m ese ihe nke a ga-ewetara anyị maka na onye litere ọtọ ma ebe ọ na-aga tinye na onye nọ nkwụ ọka n'ukwu ma ole ọ chara. Chetakwanụ na nkwa adagharịala na ọsọ anyị na-agba abụkpụkwa ọsọ nwaanyị na-agba ya ejide ara aka. ọtụrụkpọkpọ na-echi dinta na-echi Operation Mondays Ghost Town n'ala Biafra niile ebe a na-agaghị enwe ihe dịka party campaign, election, meeting maọbụ ihe ndị yiri ya n'ala Biafra. Ndị ọchịchị niile, ndị eze, ndị youth leader, ndị PG, market chairman, banks, road transport workers, town union heads na ọsịkwa na ọsịrị ya ga-adọrọkwa aka na ntị maka na onye na-efugo ntị agbafuo ya ntị. Onye si na ngwa adịghị ire ya were na ya tanye n'anya maka na ekpegbuo nwa nwaala apụrụ ya gafe ama nna ya. Biafra bụ oke mba. No wonder Britain jiri kpọọ ha the Great Biafrans. Onye na-ele anya n'azụ mmanwụ anyị na-abịa n'azụ. Onye na-ele anya n'azụ mmanwụ anyị na-abịa n'azụ. ABCD ọ ga-afụ ụka. Ọ na-aba atụ ọrụ ọmara ya mara atụọkwara n'ofeke ya efebi isi n'ọhịa. Ejikwala aka gị kpatara ihe ga-egbu n'ụbọchị ahụ, n'ihi na n'abalị 9 nke ọnwa asatọ a anyị nọ n'ime ya ka ọ ga-akwasị igbudu bụ Operation Ghost Town. Ndị niile dọrọ aka na ntị. Ọ bụ ndị nwe obodo a na-akpọ the Indigenous People of Biafra IPOB n'aha mkpirikpi n'okpuru onye ndu na onye nchịkọta ha bụ Maazị Nnamdi Kanu Ọhamadike 1 n'ala Biafra nwetara n'ụlọ ozi ya.